First year of FD was a wild one, we'll say. Getting to Road Atlanta, car shows up on a transporter, the team sets up the tent, toolbox comes out and everything else. And at that point I was like, I made it, this is it. This is as good as it's gonna get. I'm like an arrive and drive driver, there's my race car over there coming off the truck, and we're at this big grand racetrack. It felt amazing, right? And so that was the win right there. And so maybe that just full positivity is we went all the way to the finals and took second place in the first FD event ever, which is awesome. I was so stoked, just happy as I could be. Finish the event, we go and we party all night, right? And it's awesome. And so at this point, race cars are getting, transported around. We're getting flown into these events, and we're basically just trying to live like we're rock stars, right? We're this is awesome. We're partying as much as we can, just inviting friends out, and we're just treating it like we're on tour, right? And my sponsor at the time, he's so we need you to podium again, because otherwise people will think that it was a joke, right? The first round. And I was wow, that's an odd way to put good luck this weekend, And so I was yeah, of course, we want to do good, so blah, blah, blah. And so, but yeah, we go out, and sure enough, we had another great weekend. It was, we went out to Sam again, but this time it was semifinals. So I went into the consolation round and then won that and ended up third. So at this point, I was only getting beat by Sam. And so it was cool, 2 podiums in a row. It was awesome. Once again, just partying our faces off and just loving every minute of being on the road racing cars. And yeah, third event, my car broke and I jumped into the judge's right-hand drive car, which I never drove before, and just sailed it right into qualifying. I think I qualified second in that car, which was awesome because it was stupid fast. And I kind of Hail Married it in there and it stuck. And so got lucky there, but then I went out first round because I misshifted right-hand drive problems, or this side,
One of the standout things for me in the early days of Formula Drift was just seeing that there was kind of this distinction between Chris and some of the other drivers, at least early on. He took the approach of bringing out that 350Z, brand new chassis, well, relatively brand new chassis, and doing something that was a little bit off script from what was going on with other drivers that were in privateer programs. And he did establish himself as a massive underdog, but a dark horse underdog in a certain kind of way, because in that very first year of the championship, he got third place. And that would become a continuing trend for him throughout his career, that if you look back at the statistics, he's always in that top 5. And I think it's something remarkable that it was started that long ago and that early that his success as a drifter kind of came true.
Get to Irwindale, awesome weekend. We took out Sam in top 16. I was faced up with him, so I beat Sam. First driver to beat him, I guess. And he still wins the championship. It was already done and locked in. And then I went out to Reese the next round. And so I think I finished third overall that first season.
Chris is driving his ass off, and he's finally in a position to get the job done, to win, to be the champion of that event. And he has to face Reese Millen in the finals. So yeah, he's driving his little ass off and winds up beating Reese in his factory program in his car, which was by that point super dialed. His GTO was insane. Chris beat him heads up in a giant fireball at Irwindale by just straight out driving him. And I think that moment really, Chris had asserted sort of his dominance, and not only is this kid capable of great things, but he really could beat anybody here.
From absolute day one, there was just a huge gap in who the top guys were and everybody else. So yeah, Reese and Sam were like the two titans for sure in the first year of FD, and even still for years. Sam had the competition coupe and Dodge helping him out, and Reese had his GTO and GM helping him out. And so the very first event, you know, Sam's out there like understeer passing everybody for the win, and it looked good, so he was winning. You know, there was no rule against passing and pushing people around, nudging them off the track. Not physically, but just getting underneath them, and people kind of panic and spin out when they see a Viper like up in their window. And so he let it run, and it won the next round, and it won the next round, and it won the championship. So whatever. But I mean, he's a good driver behind the wheel, but it was definitely a maniac of a car to try and keep up with. And Reese, the only guy that really gave him you know, a bit of an edge, was in his like 600 plus horsepower, like mega angle GTO, just like super dialed car. And then, like I said, you had everybody else in just a bunch of 240s that were like trying to spin 225s. And so it was, consistency is what would win it back then. But if you faced Reese or Sam, you were just knocked out because you just couldn't keep up with their cars. I would say that to compare it to what we deal with now, it would be like taking the top like 3 like in FD and sending them to a local Pro-Am event. Like, that's how big the difference was. Like, you got guys that are barely clearing the course, they can drift their cars, they make some power and they can make some smoke, but like 50% of the time they're flying off the track, or the other 50% of the time they're kind of keeping it on the track. There's a couple, you know, shining guys in there that can like hold it together, like, you know, 80, 90% of the time. But still, like, that was the comparison. You got guys that are just laying it down every run in a fast car versus people that can barely even drift the course.
The first season of Formula Drift really was flying by the seat of our pants, so to speak. I mean, we came out of the D1 Grand Prix event that we produced with a lot of fire and fury about wanting to take this sport on and bring it to the American public. But we were going to be doing a multi-stop championship nationally here in the United States. So it was really challenging. And what was most challenging about it is it's not just like putting on an event in itself. It's all the competitive aspects of writing a rule book and safety. And really our focus was on safety in the first year or two, because we needed to see how rules should be written for cars that are going sideways inches apart from each other. So it was definitely a crazy learning experience, and I have some really strong memories from the early days, especially that very first event at Road Atlanta. But you know, the drivers, including Chris, got to go on that crazy ride with us, and I'm sure they'd say the same thing. I'm a rock and roll kamikaze, and you know that I die for you. When you're carrying your best, you say, man, I gotta do what you want me to.
So going into 05, like I said, we had to build that S15 in like, you know, weeks. We build it, we get out, and I didn't qualify the first event, right? And I was super bummed. And then we work endlessly all year long, Kevin and I, like investing our own time and money and like sponsorship parts into the car to get it to where it was, and we win Irwindale. It was great. And that is literally the last time I ever saw that car. The car went off to do a photo shoot with one of the partners on the car, and he kept it, and I never got the car back. I never got my parts back or anything. And so I was super pissed and had to start over again. Nissan was like, hey, you know, nice win, cool, but we would like to see you driving a Z again. And I was like, sounds great, fire me up with one. Basically like, okay, and so like somehow that worked. And so they gave me like this old, like, it wasn't wrecked, but it was like a beat up media car, right? And so they gave me a convertible, and that's the car that I then built for 06 with the Sears program, everything else. I think Falcon maybe was trying to save face a little bit. And long story short, that car, we put the Titan V8 into it, and that was the first V8 that ever went into a car for FD that didn't come with one. So we V8 swapped the car, and it gave us nothing but problems. I ended up running my old 350Z for like 3 of the rounds that year because we kept having issues with it. I didn't qualify at one event with the convertible new car. That was the second and only other time I didn't qualify for FD. And so finished 12th overall that year. So it was not a good year for me, right? I was really upset and bummed. And then Irwindale, I crashed my car, right? Because I'm just like fighting it the whole time, and Irwindale's a big track and the car just wasn't cooperating. And I ended up stuffing it, and just not a good weekend. And then as we're going into the off season, there's like a couple drift show-off events, and they're trying to give me like, you know, this leftover car to go drive because the VA car was broken because I crashed it. And so the car they give me, like that one broke too because it was, you know, an old car. And so then I'm like, okay, like now I'm like missing out on like the fun demo events. And so I was all tuned up about that. And probably running my mouth more than I should have, just saying like, oh, I'm getting effed around and this sucks, and you know, and so obviously word travels fast in a very small industry, and they probably didn't like that, and so they let me go. And that was basically it. It was a phone call in February, like less than 2 months out to FD. So we whip up a deal with Maxxis real quick. We find out that they're coming into the sport.
My name is Forsberg, driving a Nissan 350Z with Maxxis tire at NOS Energy. No laps we're doing yesterday. That should be enough to get into the top 16.
We get a couple bucks from them, and you know, throw together a couple quick sponsors. Me and Kevin rebuild the car real quick, get it out to Long Beach. Like I said, it was a decent weekend. We went out to the winter. As we get into Atlanta, like I said, at this point, we're driving out there like not sure if we're even gonna be able to afford to get back. You know, just like gonna have to like run up credit cards and make it to any next round. We go out, we win that event, and we basically like carried like a top 3 level program for the rest of that season. Our first year running my own team. Like that all felt great. We got like another podium, we got another win that year. We're coming into the final round. Everything's feeling awesome. Like we're stoked to even be there and like be in the run. And then we find out we're like in the hunt for the championship. And it really came down to the last couple runs. Tanner was in the lead and he went up against Miki, who, I forget exactly what happened, but I think like Tanner bumped the wall and like kind of straightened out and whatever, and like gets back into it coming off the big bank. And so we're like, oh, like this is it, right? And then like, I guess Miki made another mistake. And so I think they had one more time that one. Won again, Tanner ran clean, got the win, moved on. The weekend ends and we finished second behind Tanner. Pretty like monumental year for us because we like threw together a hodgepodge program in like weeks and used the very same car that was a nightmare the year before, and just like learned from our mistakes, fixed a couple things real quick on it, took it out and almost won the whole championship.
This Forsberg high on the bank, great angle, good smoke, awesome job so far. Rusakov just showing a little bit of inexperience there, but he gets to say he ran against our second place in points.
Going into 08, that's when we got our title NOS Energy Drink program. And so I had been working with NOS since 06. They stayed with me through 07, which was great because it was just the extra support we needed to get through 07, showing that they were like gonna stick with me even like when we lost the big program with Falcon. Once we like had that like outstanding year in 07, it was like, okay, like these guys can handle it, let's do the full program. So we get the title sponsorship from them. We take over the Maxxis tire service and everything. So we get tire machines out and we're bringing like UTI kids out to run the machines, and we're, you know, doing tire service for all the other Maxxis drivers. And we, you know, we got the big rig, like I just picked it up that year, like it's got NOS on it and everything. We roll into Long Beach. It was like a pretty stressful weekend for me because like, okay, like had this little like hodgepodge program last year and now we're showing up like all like freaking big guns, you know, with like this big fancy new trailer trying to show off. But sure enough, we went through and motored through that event, we won that one. And that was like a super awesome feeling because the stress of getting the big partners and like having to perform, and like I signed a contract that year that said if I didn't finish in the top 8, I would lose my deal. Like that's like the type of like stress we were on, right? Because it was like, we're gonna pay you this money, but like you better perform type thing. And so like there's always that like stress. And so to go out and win the first round was awesome. And yeah, Tanner, I think it was, yeah, Sam was second and Tanner was third at that event. And so it was like, felt awesome to like start that year off on top with like, you know, those 2 super heavy hitters like right there on the box too. I'm freaking pissed, spotter's pissed, people in the pits are pissed, everyone's like pretty upset.
We can run until we